So my topic this morning is Remaking Cities, a Manifesto for Post-Industrial Cities. 2 months ago, as Bill said, we had the Remaking Cities Congress in here right across the street at the Westin Hotel. We had 300 leading urbanists from North America and Europe, and it was the theme was the future of the post-industrial city, and that was the theme that was 25 years ago as well. Pittsburgh, of course, was featured as the exemplary example of transformation, especially since the 1980s with the collapse of industry on both sides of the Atlantic. The major partners were the Remaking Cities Institute of Carnegie Mellon and the American Institute of Architects in Washington, D.C. I was the co-chair of the event. Prince Charles was the honorary chair and delivered the keynote address via pre-recorded video. At the conclusion of his address, those of you who were at the conference will remember this, he mentioned the birth of his grandson, George, this past July, and he concluded his speech with the following. This happy event reinforced my determination to do all that I can to avoid handing our generation's problem to our grandchildren. So over the course of 3 days, the 300 delegates toured Pittsburgh, heard from major speakers from both sides of the Atlantic, participated in 5 themed workshops, and developed and voted on 27 propositions for the future of the post-industrial cities. Here are just 3 of the provocative ideas that came up out of the Congress. And I won't talk about these, but just think about it. Blow up education, create sticky cities, no new land for development. The hard work was done in the 5 theme workshops. The 5 theme workshops, all focused on post-industrial cities, had these themes: repositioning the city in the global economy, the physical city, the 21st city as an innovation hub, urban systems and infrastructure, planning, and social innovation. But in addition to those 5 kind of vertical themes that the workshops were, we had 4 themes that were cross-cutting across all of the workshops. Sustainability in all its aspects, physical, economic, and social. Wise allocation of resources, doing more with less. We know that's what's happening at our federal government, certainly. Equity in all its aspects, social, environmental, and economic. And lastly, public engagement, inclusion, transparency, and accountability. The intensity of the discussion in these workshops led to very spirited debate about those propositions. See, everybody used their hands. They weren't Italians either. I'm not sure what it was all about. The overwhelming sense of the Congress that equity was the most important issue to be addressed. Equity, as we saw before, social, economic, and environmental. Then on Friday morning, the last day of the conference, we sat as a plenary group of 300 people to vote on those 27 propositions. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see the little clickers we use to vote on things, and you could see presentation in the upper right and people working and thinking about what they're going to vote about. So the interesting thing is, in addition to equity being a high level of those 4 themes, sustainability was also a very high level, and that's what I want to focus on for the rest of my few minutes: physical, social, and economic and social. And the proposition, there were 5 of the 27 propositions dealt directly with physical sustainability and its aspects. Redesign urban accounting for sustainability, provide financial incentives for reuse, shift infrastructure decision-making, prioritize natural systems, redirect national security investments. So let's look briefly at each of those. Redesign urban accounting for sustainability. Bottom line here is triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. Meaning the corporations, and of course Mellon Bank's going to talk about this, I'm sure, is that you have the issues of social and economic and environmental issues as the bottom line, in addition to the profit of a company. Provide financial incentives for reuse. And here the idea is to target residents and small developers for reuse incentives, putting the money in the hands of people who really know their neighborhoods, especially for reusing housing and smaller buildings in older cities. Shift in infrastructure decision-making. The idea here is to integrate planning for transportation, land use, and utilities, and also food production, and all the aspects of life, not just planning in silos of residential planning here and transportation planning here and stormwater planning over here, but integrate the planning. Prioritize natural systems. The idea here is to balance natural and engineered systems at each scale, from the neighborhood to the community, to the region, to the nation, and that you're looking at natural and engineered systems as working in concert with each other. And lastly, redirect national security investments. The future will be about defensive infrastructure. And the key here is a lot of the big money is in the hands of the Corps of Engineers and national agencies. And the point we were trying to make here is you can build both the dike and the greenway. That you have to be able to think about these big national investments that are being made when there's Hurricane Sandy or whatever it might be. How do you also develop a quality of life so that you're dealing with the issues so that we don't have the same problems the next generation? So the future will be about defensive infrastructure. Now, I started my brief talk with a grandfatherly quote from Prince Charles. And I'm going to finish with a quote that most of you probably know, a Native American proverb. Treat the earth well. It was not given to you by your parents, it was loaned by your children. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So Remaking Cities, a manifesto for post-industrial cities, and our beautiful city of Pittsburgh in the midst. Thank you.